بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Before I start, I want to remind everyone, please pray for everyone in difficulty and problems. For those who have lost near and dear ones, and those who might be facing other problems, regardless of their color, creed, their religion, their sect, their nationality, whatever. Pray for the whole humanity, that Allah may make us see sense that we have only this little planet. And if we destroy it, we have nowhere else to go. And I also want to announce that until further notice, every Friday after prayers, we'll be saying funeral prayers in absentia, namaz-e-janaza ghaibana, for the Palestinians who are dying needless deaths at the hands of the murderous apartheid regime of occupiers and colonizers. The first reading today is chapter 28, verse 77. وابتغ فيما آتاك الله الدار الآخرة ولا تنس نصيبك من الدنيا وأحسن كما أحسن الله إليك ولا تبغي الفساد في الأرض إن الله لا يحب المفسدين. And seek the abode of seek the abode of the hereafter by means of what Allah has given you. But do not neglect your portion of this world, and do good to others, as Allah has done good to you. And do not seek to make mischief in the land. Surely Allah does not love mischief makers. In the next reading, this was chapter 28, verse 77. And the next reading is chapter 17, verses 13, 14, and 15. وَكُلَّ إِنسَانٍ أَلْزَمْنَاهُ طَائِرَهُ فِي عُنُقِهِ وَنُخْرِجُ لَهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ كِتَابًا يَلْقَاهُ منشورا اقرأ كتابك كفى بنفسك اليوم عليك حسيبا من اهتدى فإنما يهتدي لنفسه ومن ضل فإنما يضل عليها ولا تزر وازرة وزر أخرى وما كنا معذبين حتى نبعث رسولا. And we made every man's actions to cling to his neck, and we shall bring forth to him on the day of resurrection a book which he will find wide open. Read your book. Your own soul is sufficient as a judge against you today. Whoever goes aright, for his own soul does he go aright, and whoever goes astray, to its detriment only does he go astray. And no bearer of a burden can bear the burden of another, nor shall we chastise until we raise a messenger. And before I comment, I want to say that I want to tell you this story that I read in a book of Sufism. And it tells the story, Sadaqallahu al-Aliyyul Azim. The story is that a holy man was standing at the edge of a jungle when the jungle caught fire. And he saw a little sparrow rush to the river nearby and take a drop of water in its beak and rush back and drop it on the fire. And then it went back again and repeated the process. And the sparrow continued to do this until it collapsed with exhaustion. Upon this, the holy man approached the sparrow and asked, you could only carry one drop of water in your beak. So how do you think you were going to put out the fire? The sparrow replied that it was doing all that it could to put the fire out, and that was all. That is all that Allah will ask that sparrow about on the day of judgment. Not that you put out the fire, but did you do your best to try and put out the fire? And that's why I gave this sermon, this khutbah, the title, "But what can I do to help Palestine?" I'm in Canada, I'm in America, I'm in UK. There are so many restrictions, etc. But the point is this, that on the day of judgment, you and I will only be asked whether we tried to do everything that we could to help and support the innocent men, women, and children of Gaza who are being butchered by the murderous apartheid regime of the Israeli occupiers and colonizers of Palestine. You can write to your MP. You can ask others to write to their MP. If your friends don't know how to write English, write a letter for them. Get them to sign it and post it or email it if they have an email address. Let the British Parliament see that there are Muslims who, if you cut them, they also bleed. It is not only the occupiers of Palestine who, when they're cut, bleed red blood. You can write to the news media in the same way and ask others to do so. You can make little clips about the murder by this apartheid regime of Israeli occupiers and colonizers, about how little babies are dying in incubators because a lack of fuel for the generators mean that there is no electricity in the hospitals. You can send £1. If that is all you can afford to do, just send £1 for someone to buy food or medicines. Or go to Asda, buy 1 box of Panadol or something, and send for the innocent being slaughtered by the corrupt Israeli apartheid colonizers and occupiers. Remember, there was a time, not long ago, when no one would have dared to speak of the atrocities of this murderous apartheid Israeli occupiers and colonizers against the Palestinian people. The Christian world, the Christian West, wants to absolve itself of the guilt of having burnt alive and crucified the Jews down the 2 millennia. And they want to absolve themselves of that guilt by supplying them with arms and armaments and every facility required to murder innocent men, women, and children, old men and young babies. Remember, since the time of Constantine, who was the first Roman emperor to embrace Christianity, Christians have been burning Jews at the stake. When Muslims ruled Spain, everyone was free to practice their religion. When Isabel and Ferdinand took over, they burned alive Muslims and Jews. And who saved them? Who saved them? Did the American government send an armada? Or the Canadians? Or the British? No. It was Suleiman the Magnificent, the Muslim Khalifa in Istanbul, who sent an armada to rescue Muslims and Jews. They didn't say, you're the first in the queue, but you're not a Jew, get to one side. If we have room for you, we let you board. They let them board freely without questioning their religion. And this persecution went on in Christian countries down the centuries. And time and again, Muslims protected the Jews down to the Second World War, when the devoutly Christian Hitler was murdering Jews with poisonous gas. When the deeply Christian Britain refused to grant those Jews who were being killed and poisoned by poison gas, refused to allow them entry into Britain or to give them political asylum. The situation was no different then than it is now for the refugees who are coming from Africa. They're just a different color. And time and again, Muslims rescued Jews. The Iranian ambassador in Paris issued a large number of false passports to Jews, saying they were Iranians who were students studying in Paris, to enable them to escape. The King of Morocco refused to hand over Jews to the Nazis, saying, there are no Jews in my country, there are no Muslims in my country. In my country, there are only Moroccans. As long as they pay their taxes and don't disturb the peace, why should I care what religion they are? In Libya, Muslims put their lives on stake, in danger, to rescue Jews who are being chased by Nazis to murder them. There's no Schindler's List movie made by Hollywood about the Libyan Muslims who did that. And that's the point. By declare everything to be haram, our scholars have caused the Muslim Ummah to fall behind other nations by 1,000 years. Why should a Hollywood full of Jews and Christians make a movie about how Muslims in Libya laid down their lives to help Jews? To help Jews run from Nazi persecution. by hiding Jews in their homes, in their attics. Why should they? But their own people, they'll make lots of movies. They wouldn't make movies to show how Hitler was gassing these people. And this has happened time and time again. And this is the thanks Muslims have got from the West, from the Christians, and from the Zionists, from the Israelis, for saving their people. That Muslims, the Arabs, who in the main did this, are being slaughtered and murdered. And there is another very, how shall I say, subtle way in which the Palestinian cause is sabotaged. Every time an Israeli dies, he is killed. Every time a Palestinian is murdered by the Israelis, oh, he died. 100 and whatever it is, Israelis were killed. But these thousands of Palestinians, they weren't killed. They just died. They all got into a big hole and decided to have a massive heart attack all together for the unity of the Palestinian people and the Ummah. These are the games and tricks that the media play on you. Whenever BBC mentions Hamas, they say Hamas, which has been declared as a terrorist organization by the British and other Western governments. And then they look all innocent and say, well, we are treating both sides as equal. All we are doing is just stating what the British government has said. This is not the BBC saying it. Well, BBC and Western media, hasn't the United Nations declared Israel's occupation of the West Bank and Gaza and what it does there as criminal and illegal? Why don't you say it? And the Israelis on the West Bank, whose occupation by this murderous regime has been declared illegal by the United Nations, they then go on to say, and Hamas declared a terrorist organization by our government and other Western governments. Why don't you label the Israelis with the same thing? And that is what you can do. That is what you can do. Every time you refer to Israel, don't just say Israel. Say that apartheid murderous regime whose occupation of West Bank and Gaza has been declared illegal, whose actions has been declared illegal by the United Nations. Well, what we are doing? We are doing exactly the same thing as BBC is doing, aren't we? British government says Hamas are terrorists, and the British government says Hamas called terrorists by the British government. All we are doing is we are saying Israel declared as occupier and colonizer by the United Nations. Why is that wrong? Can someone at the BBC tell me why they don't do that? And they talk about talking with terrorists and so on. Terrorists have been wined and dined and entertained at 10 Downing Street, in the Houses of Parliament, at the White House, in the Senate, in the Congress. Now, all of the Israeli leadership immediately after 1948 consisted of terrorists. They were members of either the Argun gang or the Stern gang. Golda Meir, Moshe Dayan. The list is a long one. Ben Gurion, I think his name was, the first Israeli prime minister. He was the head of a terrorist organization. Israeli army was actually formed and created by merging these two terrorist gangs together. Why isn't that ever mentioned anywhere? You asked, but what can I do? What you can do is you can bring these facts to the notice of the people. As I said, write to your MP. Help others write to their MPs. Write to the media. Help others write to the media. As far as money is concerned, give whatever you can. If it's 50 pence, if it's £1, if it's £1,000, give whatever you can to support the humanitarian effort in Gaza. And as I said, the Western media brainwashes you while pretending to present a balanced picture. But they brainwash you by repeatedly saying, Hamas declared a terrorist organization. Hamas declared a terrorist organization. What you can do is counter that by saying Israel, illegal occupiers and colonizers of the West Bank. Israel, murderers of innocent women and children as declared by the United Nations. Maybe this repetition will one day get into people's heads. And as we've seen, and I'll end with this, previously, as I said, no one would have dreamt of supporting Palestinians. And over the years, I've done this, written letters and copied them, not just sent them to the member of parliament myself, but sent the letter to others to put their names and addresses and send them to their MP. I'm not saying that's the only reason, but I hope that was one of the reasons that we now have people like Jeremy Corbyn in the parliament who openly support Palestinian cause. Look at the 10 councillors, members of Labour Party who resigned, because that was all that they could do against people who give Israel, the illegal occupier and colonizer of the West Bank, a free card to murder Palestinians. And I was so pleased that yesterday, I don't know what the result was, that there was a meeting of the Labour Party in the House of Commons to take their leader to task for giving unqualified support to Israel and not saying one single word of support to Palestinians. Israel has a right to defend itself. Does it have a right to deprive 80-year-old men and women from food and medical treatment, or a few week-old babies? But the world will only know these things if you tell them. And the Labour Party is holding this meeting. I don't know what the result was. So, but I will end here with a plea to all of you. Please do whatever you can to help humanitarian aid get into Gaza and to help get an immediate ceasefire in Palestine. Barakallahu lana wa lakum fil Quranil Azim wa nafa'ana wa iyyakum bil ayati wa zikril hakim. Innahu ta'ala jawadun kareemun malikun barrufur rahim. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi wa na'udzu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlilhu fala hadiya lahu. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم انصر من نصر دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم واجعلنا منهم، واخذل من خذل دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا تجعلنا منهم. عباد الله rahimakumullah. Inna Allah ya'muru bil adli wal ihsani wa ita'i dhil qurba wa yanha 'anil fahsya'i wal munkari wal baghi ya'izukum la'allakum tadhakkarun. Uzkurullaha yazkurkum wad'uhu yastajib lakum wa lazikrullahi akbar. Wallahu ya'lamu ma tasna'un. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah, Hayya ala salah, Hayya ala falah, Qad qamatis salah, Qad qamatis salah. Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah. Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahmanir Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, Ihdinas siratal mustaqim, siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghairil maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. Amin. Wal asr innal insana lafi khusr illa allazina amanu wa 'amilus solihati wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. Allahu Akbar. سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بأصحاب الفيل ألم يجعل كيدهم في تضليل وأرسل عليهم طيرا أبابيل ترميهم بحجارة من سجيل فجعلهم كعصف مأكول الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر السلام عليكم ورحمة الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله أستغفر الله ربي We will now say the Namaz Janaza Ghaibana funeral prayer for our brothers and sisters who died been martyred in occupied Palestine, also known as the Gaza. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you for joining us for today's Friday service. I hope you will take the sermon to heart and do some of the things that I have suggested to help alleviate the pain and suffering of the people of Palestine, particularly Gaza, but it includes the West Bank as well, where some 2,500 people have been murdered by the Israeli occupiers this year alone. I think 170 minors, children under 15, are in prisons. Are in prisons, yes, for throwing stones at the occupying forces. If you can't do anything else, at least pray for them, that Allah may strengthen their feet in this cause. Until we meet again next Friday, I pray that Allah keeps the whole of humanity, regardless of their religion or sect or color or creed or nationality, safe and sound and free from harm, and gives humanity the common sense to see that we have only this little planet, and if we destroy it, we will not have anywhere to go. Assalamu alaikum, Khuda Hafiz, and goodbye.